We recently had a tenant move into one of our properties, into an apartment in October of 2025. So, like literally half a year ago, 6 months ago. First 5 rent payments were on time. Perfect. Seemed to be like an ideal tenant. The sixth payment never showed up. That was his March rent. So we start reaching out, say, hey, what's going on, man? How come you didn't pay your rent, right? Because that's what we do. We got to collect rent. We got to be a priority in the tenants' lives in order for us to maintain our business. And we reach out to him, and again, you got to take stories with a grain of salt. But he's saying, "Oh, I had this incident with my niece, and I needed to financially help her, and I wasn't able to pay the rent. I'll get it caught up." Okay, great. What's your timeline look like? What do you need? How can you make some type of payment? What's going on? And of course, couldn't make any payment. Wasn't sure when he would be able to pay, and that was a red flag. So what did we do? We filed. Now, again, he missed March 1st rent. We filed somewhere around the 11th or 12th, because usually we give them until the 10th to make some sort of payment. And so now we filed. And now we're reaching out to them, because what we want to do is we want to start a conversation with them and set up a payment plan. We don't want to evict anybody. Tenant turnovers are so expensive. So, okay, let's reach out to them. Let's see if we can work out some sort of payment arrangement. So we reach out to them. We're calling, we're texting, we're emailing, and there's no response. Nothing. Crickets. Okay, so I had to do something I really don't love doing. I had to go knock on the door. It's not one of my favorite things to do, but hey, got to do what I got to do to be proactive and stay on top of these things. So I go and I knock on the door, and I hear a noise shuffling around. I'm like, okay, he's here. And he shows up and he answers the door. And this is actually the first time that I met this particular tenant face to face. And what I found out when I opened the door told me everything, confirming that showing up that day was the right call. So let's have a quick chat with Chatto about dealing with non-paying tenants. So this tenant, again, it only moved in about 6 months ago, and it was a brand new relationship, and they've been paying on time. I mean, he's been perfect up until this time. This month comes, no rent. So again, he has this story about this financial hardship, his niece, and he had to help with some kind of medical bill and blah, 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 which may or may not be true. And we ask him when he can pay. And he comes out and he can't give us a clear answer, can't give us a clear date, and we file, like I said. It's not personal, right? It's a policy. It's like, we need to do this. Like, this is how we have to run our business in order to be successful. Because if we don't file, it pushes things away, pushes things along, kicks the can down the road so far, it really can add up as far as our timeline for having a non-paying tenant. So again, we file, it's part of the process. And the thing is, that's a big decision maker for the tenant, right? So that, as a landlord, filing on the tenant, that is the leverage that we have when they don't pay rent. That's what's going to say, okay, they're going to understand it's serious, that you have to pay your rent if you want to stay in the property. It lets them know that, like, hey, you know, we operate like this like a business. It's not like, oh, okay, we're going to listen to whatever excuse you have and, you know, not file, because that can definitely go sideways quickly. Because trust me, in the 25 years I've been a landlord, I've done it. So we file fast, and that starts the clock, right? And now we have a court date. And in this particular instance, our court date's coming up in like 3 weeks, and it makes a difference, right? That deadline creates a sense of urgency for us to get to the top of the tenant's priority list. So it's really not really a threat, like, oh, we're going to evict you. It's more like, hey, this is the process. This is what happens. You don't pay, this process begins, and hopefully you're willing to work with us and you can make good on the arrangement that you made, the agreement that you made to pay rent and to lease the property, and we can keep you there. We don't want a turnover. So again, we file, and now this guy goes completely dark. We're texting, we're calling, nothing. We're not getting any response from him. Like, what's going on? So when this happens and we get this complete silence, we need to, like, say, okay, what does this silence mean? And there's a couple possibilities, right? It could mean that he's embarrassed and just doesn't want to talk to us. He's like sticking his head in the sand. That's one possibility. The other possibility is, like, he realizes, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to get this figured out. I'm not going to be able to pay the rent. I just gotta hunker down and be here as long as I can before I get kicked out. And then lastly, there's actually tenants, and they get filed on and they just leave. They're like, I'm out of here, right? I can't pay this. I'm just gonna go. And though that happens believe it or not, more often than you think. So now we don't have communication from this tenant. This is not the first time I've knocked on the door to make sure like it's still occupied. Did he leave? So that's like so important, because if you don't think about that, if you're like, oh, okay, I filed on the guy, he's not responding, and you don't go and check on your property, right? What's going to happen is he might have left. The window might be open. The door might not be locked. Somebody might have seen him moving and he didn't lock the door. And now you got a squatter in there, and that can become a bigger issue. So if you're not hearing from a tenant and something's like not right, you need to go check on your property, right? It's an asset that you need to preserve, and either you or your property management company, but somebody's got to go knock on that door. Because like I said, they may have already left. You can't manage what you can't see sometimes, right? It's so important to get your eyes on a property, get your eyes on the situation, see what's going on. And plus, right, because he's there, I'm able to start that conversation. So I drove over there. Luckily, I was able to kill two birds with one stone, because we had another property we just renovated right there, right? So I was able to actually walk over from the one property to this property, and I go up and I knock on the door, right? And I hear him shuffling around, and this is the first time I met this guy in person. And this was a wake-up call for him. Like, you know, the fact that he got the paperwork, he knew that he was filed on, right? And the fact that I'm knocking on his door, right? And somebody that he doesn't know all of a sudden is knocking on his door. I identify myself. Hey, this is Steve with Property Management. We've been trying to reach out to you. Did you get a new phone or something? What's going on? Oh, no, I have the same phone number. And he's trying to blame. Oh, no, I didn't know you were reaching out to us, but okay, whatever. So I'm like, okay, man, like, cool. Like, we want to get this figured out. We had to file eviction. He's like, oh yeah, I saw that email that you filed eviction. I'm like, okay. So we had to file this eviction, and what's going on? Like, he's like, oh, and then he tells me again about the story about the niece, which he told us before. And but do I believe it? Do I not believe it? Who knows? But that being said, he tells us the story about the niece, and at the same time, he's kind of saying he's not employed. Like, okay, so is it that you're not employed, and that's kind of an excuse you were using, or what's going on? Anyway, I said to him, hey, we want to keep you here, because we do. We don't want to lose a tenant. We say, hey, can you pay the April rent? If you're able to pay the April rent, by the 5th is when the April rent is late and be on the 6th. So you're able to pay the April rent, and then we can take payments over time so you can get caught up on the March rent. No, I'll be able to have the whole thing in 2 weeks. Everything, I'll be paid in full in 2 weeks. I'm like, okay. I'm like, and I try to tell him, like, look, I really want to set you up for success. If you're not going to be able to pay 2 months rent plus the eviction charge within 2 to 3 weeks, like, let's get you set up. Let's get a payment for for April, and then we can start doing catch up on March. Like, we're willing to work with you. We can even do it over a few months. Like, I want you to be successful. Oh, no, I'm going to get the whole thing paid off. A little bit of a red flag for me. It's definitely a little bit of a red flag, because I don't really think that he knows where he's going to get it from or what it's going to look like, and he's just trying to make a promise now so that he doesn't get stuck up later, or make a promise now so that he can breathe and kick the can down the road a little further. Anyway, we'll see. He has until the court date, and between now and then, hopefully he can come up with April rent, and we can get him on a payment plan and get that filed with the court, and that's binding, and we can move forward. If not, he's going to show up at court, and if he has money, we'll work the payment plan. If not, the eviction moves forward. Again, that's why it's so important for us to go out there and file early, right? And that's why it's so important for us to follow up and have these conversations. So we're going to find out. Like, he's either going to be caught up by the end of the month, and he's going to stay and hopefully pay May on time, or, right, he's not going to come up with the money, and he's going to be out in a relatively quick manner, hopefully. So 2 things I want to point out, right? So 2 moves that we made that were proactive in this particular situation that really kept us at top priority for him. Number 1, we filed quickly, right? We filed quickly, so we have a court date already set up. Right, that date is leverage. It's a real deadline that forces the tenant to take action, and it helps put us on the top of the priority pile. When a tenant has a couple bills that he can't pay and a court date for where they live, chances are they're gonna pay for the rent. And if he doesn't come through, the process has started, and we're not starting from scratch. If we would have listened to a bunch of stories and got kicked down the road, we could have potentially lost another month or two of rent. And that's a lot of money. It really is. And the second big thing, the second proactive move that we made in this situation was knocking on that door. I was able to confirm that the property was occupied. I was able to have a conversation with him. It was obviously a wake-up call for him. I could tell from when I knocked on the door and he saw somebody was there saying, "Hey, where's your rent? What's going on?" And that conversation made it even more real for him. Like, yeah, he got an email that we filed because they probably didn't put the paperwork on the door yet, but he knew we filed, and now, like, hey, somebody's at his door, right? So both of those help to create, an urgency for him. And it also, again, we don't want to lose a tenant. It was able to reopen up those lines of communication, right? He knows, like, I'm like, man, just call us, talk to us. You have to keep us in the loop as far as what's going on. Be open, be honest with us, because we want to keep you there, right? If you're actually able to get caught up again and you're actually able to continue to afford the property, we want to keep you there, right? And if you can't afford the property, you're going to need to move on. But, like, you need to let us know what's going on. So that's why it's so important to follow your process when it comes to tenants that pay late and tenants that aren't paying on time. Like, you have to have your system in place. And for us, and I've said it multiple times, rent's due on the 1st. After the 5th, so on the 6th, that morning of the 6th, right? If your rent's not in, you're getting a late fee added to your account. And now, between the 6th and 7th, you're getting phone calls and texts saying, hey, you didn't make your rent payment. If you don't make a payment, a sizable payment, like a decent payment, by the 10th, on the 11th, we're going to file. And that's been working really well for us. And every time we stick to that, it just puts us in a much better situation. So again, on this one, we don't know how it's going to end yet. Let's see what happens. I'm hoping 2-3 weeks, he's paid in full. May he pays, and we're good to go. That would be the best situation for everyone. So we'll see. But if not, like I said, court is there. So we'll see what happens. But because we filed fast, like, we have that timeline in place. So if you're a landlord and the tenant goes dark on you, the big thing is make sure you go and knock on the door. Figure out what's going on, because you don't know what happened. You don't know if they vacated the property. Like, the lines of communication are completely broken down, and you knocking on that door is a wake-up call that reopens that line of communication a lot of times. So that being said, hopefully this video was of value. We're about 12 minutes in, 13 minutes in. Hopefully this video was of value to you. As always, you can go to chatwithchatto.com, and if you go there, I have a free property walkthrough. So whenever you're at one of your properties, you pull this out of your bag and you can go through it, and it helps prevent unnecessary maintenance calls and unnecessary expenses due to items that are preventative maintenance that you may not notice, right? So you got to go through, you're at your property, go through, and you got to look for those preventative maintenance items, right? So that they don't become huge bills. And again, so I put this together, just a freebie for you guys to have and just bring with you whenever you go to one of your properties. And then the other piece of it is like, hey, if you want to have a conversation with me, if you think I can help you in any way, go to my website, book a call, have a quick chat with Chatto, and hopefully I can support you a little bit that way as well. So hopefully you like and subscribe if you want to help me a little bit, right? Because apparently algorithm, blah, blah, blah. And, let's have a conversation in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Chat with Chatto.